affectionately known as Dr. Trina, is a licensed psychotherapist, womanist practical theologian, and ordained minister in the African Methodist Episcopal Church. She is the founder of the Center of Wellness Encounters, a virtual practice providing holistic psychotherapy to individuals, couples, and families across 20 states. She also has founded Helpers and Healers, which offers consultation, support, clinical supervision, training programs, workshops, peer support groups, and self-care resources to people in helping and caregiving professions like you. With over 20 years of clinical experience in crisis counseling, hospice chaplaincy, addiction treatment, private practice, and community mental health, Dr. Trina has worked with people across the full spectrum of life, from inner city youth to those experiencing homelessness, incarceration, trauma, and relationship crisis. She has also served in ministry at several AME churches and in higher education as a professor and administrator at 3 seminaries, bringing together her deep expertise in both psychology and spirituality. Dr. Trina is an author, improvisational performer, lover of musical theater, and devoted mom. Whether working with clients, teaching, or on stage, she is driven by one essential commitment: to make sure everyone in her presence is truly seen. Please help me welcome Dr. Trina.
Hello, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, welcome. You all have had a full conference so far, huh? Full day? I just got here just in time for lunch. I got a chance to hang out a little bit, though. Well, welcome to this workshop. Thank you to Dr. Barbara McClure for that introduction. She is indeed a friend. It's always good to be amongst friends. I'm happy to be here with you all. I have one caveat, that if you came here to take a bunch of notes, that's not going to happen. Did anybody come here? I do have slides, though. Did you come for notes? Okay, good. I feel so constrained. So the name of this workshop is Love Made Known, the Spiritual Heart of Mental Health Care. My organization that I founded in 2019 is called the Center for Wellness Encounters. Influenced by, anybody have any idea where I may have got that from? Just curious. Well, encounter. Clue. I do improv. Well, encounter. Ooh. Who's got it? Yay! Who got it? Raise your hand. Yay! Raise your hands if you got it. Yes. The woman at the well in John 4. She speaks deeply to me. Right? Alone, by herself, getting water. She was supposed to come with other women. Right? For Samaritan women, that was not typical, but she's there alone. And guess who comes and finds her? Jesus, right? A sacred encounter. Now, I don't know about you all. I have heard so many sermons about the woman of the well, and most of them weren't very dignified, right? Except the ones I preach. There was something special about that encounter, right? Some might say it wasn't very intentional. Jesus was taking a break and just happened upon her. Maybe it was intentional. I'm not a biblical scholar or New Testament scholar, so I'm not going to dive into those waters. But what spoke to me was the encounter. In the encounter, Jesus saw her, right? Named all of her longings, right, that were mostly about relationships, right? The number, he got the number. Some would say he called her out. I say he called her in and spoke to her deepest longing for a relationship. And so you had to know the cultural background. You had to know the history to be able to understand what was really happening for her in her lived experience. Otherwise, you reduce her experience to sound bites, just the number of husbands that she had. But Jesus knew more than that. And guess what Jesus did? Stayed with her, recognized her thirst and her longing, and offered her living water. Right? So there was an interesting exchange. But in that was, you will never thirst again. Boy, that spoke to me. Did that speak to anybody else here? Yeah. Spoke to me so much when I was looking for a name for my wellness practice. I sat with it, prayed about it. I didn't want Dr. Trina or Trina Armstrong psychotherapy. I wanted something really unique that spoke to the philosophy of the work that I was doing there. In my own work, I've done a lot of stuff over the course, as you heard in my bio, many different things, what I call ministry in the trenches, whether it was in homeless shelters, working with women in prison, women in crisis, pregnancies. I did a lot of stuff. And one of the things I realized is that I really did see people. I saw people in some of the most challenging spaces in their lives. Decisions. Some of them have been written off. Those who have faced addiction have been written off by their families. Formerly incarcerated women who initially were there because they were lifers. They had killed other people who, domestic partners, but by the grace of God, a woman, a nun, was able to enact legislation in California that allowed them to include that information, allowed them to get out. And so I met them after 30 years in prison, right? So many different people. I got stories. I won't tell those stories. But what is important is this concept of love made known, right? That's the theme of this ministry week. What does that mean, right? What do you all think? This is going to be quite interactive, so you don't get a chance to just stare at me and watch me talk. I have decided a few years ago, especially when I left the academy, I was doing these intellectual workshops and, had slides, and I do have some slides. But I would do more lecturing, depositing information, and now I'm more experiential. What is love made known? Any thoughts? Anybody want to offer their thoughts on what that means? And just raise your hand. I can hear you. Yes.
Love that can be seen and felt at the same time.
Excellent. Anybody else? Yes.
Unveil the truth of love within.
Okay. Anybody else?
Armstrong, could you repeat, when you hear somebody, could you repeat it for me? And then we can all hear it.
Okay. All right. One more. Yes. Embody. Yeah, embody. That too. Well, before we go any further, I want to invite us just to arrive together. Some of the content may be a little heavy, as you can tell. But I recognize that each of us are coming into this room from who knows what, right? Maybe lunch, maybe the wonderful 1 o'clock lecture. Maybe you took a nap. Maybe you're thinking about what's going on after this. Maybe you're distracted. Maybe, I don't know. But I recognize that everybody's arriving at different places. So if you can just take a breath. In and out. And mostly when I ask my clients to breathe out, for the time that I have them, for the time that I have you, right, I want you to be able to rest. I call my therapy sessions an opportunity to rest. That for the hour that I get my clients, not to think of anything that would distract him. So if you could just take another breath. Yeah. This workshop is meant to be quite spacious, meaning that there are going to be opportunities to have some conversation and think about a lot of things. So I want to be very careful about how I hold the space. There will be moments of listening, moments of reflection, and moments of conversation. So you're welcome to notice what resonates with you, right? What resonates with you, what feels challenging, and what do you want to hold quietly to yourself if you see yourself on some of these slides, okay? I will probably ask you to talk to your neighbor, if that's okay, but if you don't want to do that, that's okay too. So let's jump in. Everybody ready? Everybody know this scripture? Yeah, probably in our sleep, huh? Yeah, this is one that I learned in Sunday school. For God so loved the world that he gave his only son, so that everyone who believes in him may not perish, but have eternal life, right? When I was 5, that was exciting. But as a woman who lived a lot of life, I often have asked over my life, where is God's love? Where is God's love? Many people, including a lot of my clients, wonder, where is God's love? If God is indeed so good, why is all of this stuff happening in my life? They've lost hope. They live very limited and constraining lives. They feel quite lonely. Some of them wonder if they'll get married, have partners, have children. Some want to make sense of childhood trauma. Some want to recognize, understand why they're so anxious. Why can't I turn my mind off? And some people will ask, how come I can't get up in the morning? Why can't I sleep at night? Some are battling addictions, food, alcohol. Some, in fact, many, social media. It both captivates them and keeps them up at night. And they scroll and scroll and scroll and wonder why they can't sleep at night. So what does it mean to speak of love, and especially God's love, when people are dealing with all of this stuff? Anxiety, depression, that just won't go away. Thoughts of suicide, breaks from reality, relationships, conflict that are falling apart. I did quite a bit of couples counseling and a lot of family therapy these days. Oh boy, that's hard work. Conflict that will not end and prayers that go unanswered. Let's take that in. Where's God's love in a hospital hallway at 3 in the morning in a crisis unit after someone has been restrained, in a home where a person feels too numb to get out of bed, or in a church where someone has prayed for change and nothing seems to shift? Nothing. In 2020, I lost a brother to suicide. Man, it Still, the guilt of not being able to help him still lingers almost 6 years later. I'm a therapist. I'm a minister. I know all about this stuff. I couldn't help. God, where was your love? People who are facing cancer, chronic illnesses, increasingly a lot of neurodivergence. Y'all don't know what that means. Anybody know what neurodivergence is? It's a relatively new term in the mental health spaces. ADHD, mostly. And then there's more and more adults who are being diagnosed as adults with autism. Wow, you guys are shaking your heads. You know this? Yeah. Lots of stuff out there. Right? So what do we mean when we speak of God's love for these racing minds and the bodies, these physical bodies who deep inside them carry fear and shame that keeps them hidden from even themselves? Families torn apart by pain. I have so many. I'm in the Chicago area, so ICE is quite prevalent there. Many of my clients are also other helpers, some who run Medicare clinics, where many of those clients are also undocumented. And I have some clients in Minneapolis, Minnesota, who just don't know what to do with all of the stuff that they're taking in from ICE and the shootings, and families are just being torn apart. I'm close proximity to that pain. People just don't know what to do with it, helpless. And they ask, can this love stay present even through unanswered questions without looking away? Right? It's one thing to deal with the question. It's another thing to stare suffering in the face and then look away. Can God's love speak to that? Yeah. I told you it was going to be experiential. Yeah. And I'm going to pause here. Or just let that settle in. And just find one other person and just tell them what's coming up for you as you just heard all of that, saw those slides. So just take a breath. Move, do whatever you have to do. Let's take about 5 minutes and just find somebody to share what came up for you as you heard all of that. There's this gentleman right here. Can somebody pair with him? And if you don't want to, that's cool too. I just want you to be able to process this before I move on. Oh, okay. Thank you so much. Thank you. Everybody get a chance to share? Yeah? Okay. For the rest of our time, I can't promise that I'll get through all of this. In the context of Love Made Known, the spiritual heart of mental health care, what I hope to do is be able to share a little bit about how love appears when people suffer. Like, what does this love really look like, right? We've heard some definitions, some descriptions of it. What is the cost of unseen suffering? I'm going to talk a little bit about a book that I'm writing on invisibility trauma. So I'll share a little bit about that. What matters most in spiritual and mental health care? I'll talk about mental health care a little bit more. And what makes care deeper and more real when we see, right? So as you can tell, the theme, right, is seen, made known, right? So talk a lot about that. It's going to be interwoven. And then how does what we notice change how we care, right? Because what I've learned is there's a whole lot of stuff that we just simply don't notice, right? I'm sort of an anomaly in the therapist world because I have spiritual training, so I don't do diagnosis well, right? My fellow therapists live and die by the DSM because insurance companies require it, so I've sort of found my way around it to meet the insurance requirements and at the same time to really see my clients in the fullness of who they are, right? What we call full humanity, right? But when you think about it, how have you felt in your interactions with people in your life, right? Professional settings, ministry settings, wherever you dwell, in whatever area of your life, have you ever really felt fully seen and known? You don't have to raise your hand. It's a contemplative reflection question. Right? Have you ever really felt seen and known? Yeah, take a look at these pictures. I love art. What stands out in these pictures? Which one stands out? Again, this is interactive. As one speaks to you, raise your hand and share your thoughts on it. Take a few minutes. Yes? This one? Right here? Okay. What stands out for you? Okay, this one right here? The one that's got her back turned? Oh, her. Okay. Ah, okay. Right here? Yeah. Yeah. Anybody else? Which one stands out? Yeah. Use your outside voice. Right here? Yeah. Yeah. Anybody else? Ooh, yeah. Which one? Right here? Yeah. This lady right here? Yeah. Who else? Yeah. 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 How about others? Oh, yeah, go ahead. Yes.
My vision's not very good, and so I looked at that middle, the colors caught me in the middle image, and I know that it looks, she's carrying, that baby's too heavy to be carried for very long, I can see it in her back, but maybe it's the colors, or because she's barefoot, but I'm sensing joy also. So the burden's heavy, but it's a love thing going.
Yeah.
But like I said, my glasses probably aren't strong enough.
But you're demonstrating something, right? How we see and what we see, right? Whether we put our glasses on or take them off, right? Yeah. Anybody else? A couple others. What stands out? Yeah.
The healthcare worker, she looks, doctor, she looks exhausted, just from the weight of her work, but there's also a little kind of smile on her face, so she's exhausted, but she feels fulfilled in what she does. That's the sense I get from this.
Okay. All right. Over here. Does somebody have their hand up? No? One more? Yeah. What don't you see? What don't you see?
I don't see a lot of grown-up to grown-up relationship. I see a couple of people taking care of little ones, but I don't see grown-ups in relationship with each other.
Okay. Just people who are by themselves. Yeah. What else? What don't you see? Yes.
They're a part of the community, we don't see it. So if they are a part of a community, we don't know that, we can't see it. We don't know if there is support or what that looks like.
Yeah. Right. These are my favorite because I'm living a long story, but I'm in Chicago, and for the first time I'm carless. Ooh, you all like, ooh. Yeah, I live in a downtown high-rise where everything's walkable, although I'm regretting it right now because it's snowing. But I'm often on the train station walking in busy streets where people are just coming and going. Like, what do you notice about that train? Like, here we got people, we got community, right? Everybody's on their phones. How many people have seen that? How many of you have done that? Just kidding. No confessions here. Yeah, look at that. How about this photo right here at the top? That's actually New York. I spent quite a bit of time in New York because I love Broadway. But how about that one? What do you notice?
There's no eye contact. I mean, they're walking right by each other, but it's almost like they're turning their heads to not make eye contact.
Yeah.
And that's true here.
Like nobody seeing each other. And that's pretty true. When you're walking in New York, anybody ever been to New York? Yeah, you just like walk Times Square and some of these business districts. Nobody's paying attention to you. But we have a family, right? A relationship, right? Children. Which one stood out to you? Yeah, that caught my attention too. Yeah.
Beauty in squalor, she's beautiful, but look
Man,
around.
there's so much going on in that, right? Yeah. How about some of the other ones?
I think the guy the man in the lower right-hand corner, I think he's a pastor or a teacher. He looks really tired. He's got the coffee.
We could tell the stories of people just by looking at them, right? But they all speak to something, and they all tell a story about people's lives, right? They also speak to, as you see increasingly, right, the mental health, right? The subtopic of this the spiritual heart of mental health. And so these latter ones really help us think about, well, what really is mental health? What does it look like? Right? And who gets to respond to it? Truth of the matter is we're all bringing, right, our mental health. It's a dimension of human life, right? It's our emotional, psychological, social, and spiritual well-being. All of the layers. Thoughts, feelings, memories, behaviors, longings, fears, our sense of value, worth, agency, what we believe we can and cannot do. Connection and belonging. This is one of the biggest crises in mental health care today. I have to admit, I am absolutely helpless when I encounter it in my spaces. I absolutely don't know what to do with it. People are starving for relationships. And you know what the irony is? They have people in their lives. They're yearning for love and connection. They want relationships where people see them and not just find them useful, easily discarded. The biggest health crisis facing us now, one, there's many, given all the stuff that's going on in the country, which I won't get into. So you have the general sense of mental health, and then what is good mental health, right? When we can cope with life's challenges, right? Many people who come to caregiving spaces often become because there's a crisis and they don't know what to do with it. But the truth of the matter is they really haven't learned how to cope with adversity at any point in their life, right? But when they face one, a big one, they get exposed. Or they're really wonderful at using very protective ways to cope. Perfectionism, people-pleasing, some of those kinds of behaviors when they are trying to prevent rejection, right? Failure, some of those things, right? We don't see mental health struggles when it looks like success, right? When it looks like, right, the most loudest person in the room, right? The one who has the large personality that draws everybody in, right? We don't consider that to be a person who has mental health struggles, right? So what do we see? So we're all really trying to find meaning and purpose, right? And everybody's trying to find some sense of connection, both to ourselves and one another, right? And many people, they may not say they're, I'm mostly a Christian therapist, but I don't advertise myself that way. But many people, right, know that they have some sense of something beyond themselves. They just don't know how to make sense of it. They've not been in spiritual communities where they've been given the space to really think about that. Or, on the other side of the spectrum, those who are very wedded in spiritual communities, right, and do what I call spiritual bypassing, right? They cope through ways in which it minimizes or bypasses the pain that they've experienced, and so they spend the therapy session preaching to me about how wonderful God is, right? That's real, right? And we have it in our churches, right? We have that everywhere. And we think that's wonderful. And sometimes we'll praise the Lord with them, right? Because that's what success, that's what well-being looks like, or we think that's what it looks like, right? But the reality is we really don't know what's happening on the inside of them, right? I just happen to have an up-close and personal view because they come and see me. Right? So what do we do with that when it looks like they have it all together? Right? Strength, person who doesn't need anything. Right? So when I was thinking about this, and I've been doing this a little bit more in some of the workshops, is trying to help religious leaders in religious spaces understand that mental health care is really spiritual. It is not just the realm of the licensed therapist or social worker or psychologist. It really isn't. The challenge of that is when professionals outside the realm of professional psychotherapy and those particular places is the same thing as showing up, right? In our churches, I've spent quite a bit of time in churches, and I can't tell you the amount of sermons that I've heard that, right, don't really understand the depth of people's suffering. They just don't understand it. They make assumptions about what people can and cannot do, mostly what they're not doing in terms of service, their faith, right? Why their lives aren't getting any better, why their relationships are failing. So the very surface level view of what is happening, right, in what I call the internal workings of people's lives. Right? So what do you think is going to happen to people in those settings? And it's not just church, it does happen with some therapists as well, right? I get quite a few people who come to me who have been to other therapists, and they want something that will take them deeper because they say, all I did in that therapy session was what? Talk. And they want something deeper. They want to understand their suffering, right? The reality of it is very few people know how to get to that. Very few people know how to get to the depths of that. So when I think about the spiritual heart of mental health care, I really think about it in simple ways, right? Meaning, right? How do we make sense of what is happening to us and who we are becoming? How do we make sense of that? Where does that show up? In conversation, in distress, in crisis. Human value and worthiness. So many people have low self-worth. You wouldn't know it. Low self-worth. They come from families who didn't see them or only saw them for how smart they were or how good they were in sports. The good stuff. Their tears weren't allowed to exist. Their questions weren't allowed to be answered. Their anger was diminished. Their sadness was pushed aside. Anybody come from the children should be seen and not heard generation? I'm dating myself, sorry. Oh, I got 3 people. It's still happening. So the natural parts of who they are weren't allowed to flourish. Right? So they were made to believe that those parts of themselves didn't have any value. So they pushed it aside. So where do you think that's going to show up? Relationships, work, imposter syndrome, right? Doing what they can to be successful. And yet when they reach the pinnacle of success, they don't believe that they belong. Value and worthiness. Right, belonging. One of the things that I've been trying to do different in my work is to really think about the context of suffering right? Many people are carrying that alone, not in community, right? They come to therapy because they have no one else in their lives to be able to share these deep, challenging things that are impacting their lives, and they're alone, which makes it, right, their responsibility because they believe that something is wrong with them, that they've done something wrong. But the reality is they have not had containers who saw them. So they've been growing up and living under the assumption, right, that all of the things that matter to them, right, doesn't matter. Nobody affirms it. None of their relationships, family members. So it's cyclical. Cyclical. Everybody with me? Yeah. Take a breath. Truth and hope. How we name suffering with honesty, attending to harm, injustice, and constraints as parts of human life. Most people come to therapy. Most people I encounter in spiritual places and spaces where I do my ministry work are carrying the layers of harm from the injustices of the systems that they've been a part of. Family systems, organizational systems, cultural systems. The injustices. Many of my clients are African American, and they don't really know the history of harm for African Americans, right? Why things keep getting passed down to them, right? And I'm privileged because I've studied all of that stuff and read a bunch of books, right? Did a dissertation on it, right? So I know where to get that information. But I also have not used it as knowledge, but I've used it as a way to see them and at some point help them to see themselves, that this is not because of you, right? These are cultural burdens, cultural realities that you are embedded in, systems that have just been designed to not see you. So they show up expecting to be seen, and they're living in stressful environments, work environments, and working and believing that if I just work some more, if I do some more, if I work 30 hours, if I work 40 hours, maybe they will see me. And yet they're not sleeping, they're not eating, they're trying and don't know they're embedded in layers. So seeing is telling the truth about what really is happening in the lives of people who are suffering. So many people have lost hope. They just don't believe things are going to change. And it's not even about this political reality. They've long lost hope that anything could be different. And so they live their lives like that, very constrained, very isolated, very limited in every aspect of their life. They just don't believe there is more to life for them. So this is like big time work. Right? They think it's anxiety. They think it's depression. They think it's ADHD. They got all of these names for it. And yes, some of those things help them to see. They go to psychiatrists. And what do psychiatrists do? Medicate them. And I'm not saying that medication isn't bad. but they're not seen for who they are in the fullness of their humanity. So the hope remains reduced. I call myself a hope merchant. I don't give it to them, but I create the conditions where they can realize the spiritual heart of mental health care. And in doing so, they are now able to see themselves. Now, this work has taken, for many of my folks who stick to it, years. Years. And you want to know why? This is my concept. Anybody ever heard of this, invisibility trauma? No, it's mine. So there's trauma, right? There's a whole bunch of different types of trauma. The experience of it, the ways in which it impacts. There's many books that have been written about trauma. But the biggest source of suffering is invisibility, right? The cumulative ongoing impact of living in conditions where the fullness of who we are is not consistently recognized or received. Develops across personal relationships, communities, organizations, systems that shape how we come to know ourselves, how we relate to others, and like I said about hope, how we imagine what is possible for our lives. And it starts very young. So when you're not seen, you adapt. You hide the things that are unlovable, and those are the things that were made to be seen in the first place. And so what do? We live adapted lives, believing that we have to do something to be seen. Right? That our tears, that our emotions, that our longings, right, is not worthy of being seen. Our efforts, all of that is invisible. Think about organizations. The thing that stood out to me when I think of this in communities in Washington, D.C., they painted Black Lives Matter. Boy, that was a big thing. And guess what they did? Removed it. Communities with history wiped out, made to believe that that history doesn't matter. So if your history doesn't matter, guess what? You don't matter. And if you don't matter, you're going to live a very constricted life. And that life often shows up in addiction. It shows up in failed relationships. It shows up in all of the organizational spaces where who you are is just simply not received or valued. Invisibility. All right, I'm going to pause because I'm almost done. Just think about, where have you not been seen in your life? Or felt like you had to do something to be seen? I'll go first. I'm a middle child. Two older, two-ish, three-ish younger. One died when she was 12. So who got the attention? The older and the younger. I was the child who didn't need anything, the smart kid. Oh, Trina will be okay. Right? There was no place for emotions. There was no place for dreams. There were no place for questions. Because I was okay. All the attention was to the other kids. Right? And so I minimized all of those things, still to this day. Right? Okay, healing is a lifelong journey. And so what kind of spaces did you think I went in? Right? Believe that I had to do something to be seen. And then you have the layer of being a black woman, and there's just inherent invisibility in that anyway. Right? If I could just be strong, I'll do that. I'll be the caregiver. I'll be the one. Yeah. I can't show my weaknesses. Yeah. I'll do it. And shame if you're feeling all of that. What are you going to do with the shame? Right? Probably numb it, distance yourself from it. Right? Where have you felt invisible or felt like you had to do something to be seen? Can anybody relate? You don't have to say it, but just raise your hand. Raise your hand if you have anything. Yeah. And you know why it's traumatic in a different way? Like big trauma is really big, right? We see it. But we really don't see the impact of what it does to people's lives. We don't see that. But invisibility trauma is sneaky. It's pervasive. Right? No one would have ever seen that in me. And still don't. But that's the power of seeing. I see it. I can name it. That's not the reason why I help my clients, because I got that long before I realized my own journey. And it took me walking away from a bunch of stuff to have a little bit of space to say, you know what? That really wasn't me. And what do you think happens to people who lose their sense of self, their sense of value, right? That really isn't me, right? Churches, we see that in many of our churches. That's not me. So when you say that, guess what? Sort of, okay, well, who am I now? If all of that stuff wasn't me, who am I without it? And that's where the crisis of identity comes in. Right? That's that space, that holding space. Right? Where God comes into that space. Love made known. I see you in all of your fullness. I see you. Invisibility. Partially known. Fragmented. I'm okay. I'm fine. Praise the Lord. Yes. The marginalized person that's off to the side and nobody sees. What stops us from seeing? From being curious about the people in our lives? Well, first we got to be curious about our own lives, right? When we stop seeing ourselves, and I'm generalizing on purpose, but not really. How many people have seen these pictures or know these pictures intimately? The fragmentation. I can only bring that part of myself to the community, to the relationship, to the job. Nobody cares about the other stuff. The mask, the I'm okay mask. Right? The isolated one who nobody sees. Which one stands out to you? You don't have to raise your hand. Which one stands out? Does any of them stand out? Anyone really speak to you?
The man who is fragmented, I know because of the ethics as a pastor, there is appropriate and inappropriate disclosure. And I sometimes wonder where the line is. I appreciate how the background in that image is vibrant pink, which looks so lovely and appealing, attractive, and sometimes I wonder if that's all I'm allowed to share is the good stuff. And I know the answer is no, it's not. But sharing the uncomfortable, the complicated, the difficult, the messy is very tricky.
Yeah. Yeah. And the truth of the matter is how many we really want to hear that. Are we willing to stay in it with people who've already, by the way, figured that it's too risky for me to bring all of this to anybody, right? Because they're not going to care about me. They're not going to see me. And this is not all spaces. But it does help us to think about the pervasiveness of it, what I call the phenomenon of it, right? Because everything rests on that. It's not the diagnosis. When you peel away the layer and layers and layers, is no one sees this, no one sees me. So the spiritual heart, right, helps us to really think about the cost of the unseen suffering, right? Because when we see it and we don't see it, right, we see it, yet we don't see it. No matter how it looks, right? When it goes unseen long enough, we just forget it, that we deserve to be seen or that we matter, right? Value and worth. So the wound beneath the wound, people who have already been wounded and not even believed in their woundedness. So many. So many. But here's the reality. Seeing costs us, disrupts our comfort, demands a response. It touches our own unhealed pain. Sometimes we're just too busy. We tell ourselves stories to justify looking away. We confuse distance with professionalism. And some people benefit from not seeing. Lots of organizations, cultures, medical systems. And then we feel ashamed when we need help or we're in pain. But when we see, we can't unsee it. When we peel away the layers as helpers, as caregivers, or whatever role that you're in, when we really see it, it's hard to look away. Right? Because we believe we have to do something, fix it, right? Affirmation, all of that thing to make people feel good, but it really makes ourselves feel good. But the reality of it is people just want to know that they matter. They want to know that they matter, that they have value and worth, right? And we call that in psychological spaces mirroring, right? I can't do that on my own. So it's both a gift and it's a threat. Because if I see it and I walk away, right, I'm both harming myself and the other person. What do we do? Well, I'm not ending it on that note. But it's costly. It's all around us. So what is love made known, right? Right? It meets us inside our suffering, honors our dignity, our right to be humans, a right to exist at whatever identity, queer, black, woman, transgender, young person, whatever. I have the right to exist. So many people, right, who suffer from mental health challenges are blamed for their own suffering, or sometimes they get reduced to sin, without a full understanding of the layers of people's lives. But a love that's made known is curious, will stay, will ask questions, that there's more to this person than what I'm seeing. But in order to see that, I have to stay. I have to see the inherent value and worth of that person in front of me. You matter. And I see you. And sometimes people are just in a slow death march. Right? Many people who have chronic illnesses, diabetes, heart disease, aren't doing anything to take care of themselves. They don't believe they matter. Why bother? But a love that makes known the dignity and value and inherent worth of persons will not try to fix them or talk them into being well, but to start at the fundamental level that your life matters. And I'm going to meet you there. So it's the embodiment of God's love. Sometimes that, yes, God's love, and there are many scriptures that talk about it, but to really make that love known is to stay, to see, to be curious, to know that there is more to each and every one of us than what we even present to ourselves. Right? You know that feeling, hi, how are you? And the other person is walking the other way long before you had a chance to answer. It's embodied. It's connection. It's staying. It's listening. We learn all of this stuff in pastoral care. We teach it to our students. But it's deeper than that. Because in order for me to be able to embody that, I really have to believe that love has been made known in my life, that I matter. So where has love been made known in your life? Where are there opportunities for you to embody that in ways that change how you see both yourself and other people? That's the spiritual heart of everything that we bring to the fullness of our lives. That's it. That's all I have to say. Take a breath. All right. Have time for just a few questions. Not a lot, but a few. Anybody have questions?
If you have questions and you feel like you have a big outside voice, please stand and ask it. If you'd like me to come with a microphone, I'm glad to do that. We also have a working mic. It's looking a little sad at the moment, but when you get there, you can lift it up to engage Dr. Trina in your questions and comments. Dave, do you have a big outside voice, Dave? Oh, okay.
I have become, I've been a hospice chaplain for end-of-life people dying for the last year and a half. And I have continuously become more and more and more and more aware of there ain't nobody listening. And just by me sitting by a bedside or sitting with a family or whatever, and just saying, I don't have all the answers. In fact, I may have very few answers, but maybe we can make meaning of this together. I can hold your hand. And this helps bring dignity. There's nobody listening. And I think that what this world needs is more people who just sit and listen. Don't try to lead into anything. Don't try to, necessarily fix them per se, but just be there for them. And so that's just, this was very good. Thank you.
Yeah, sometimes I think one of the things about love made known is letting go of certainty, that we have all the answers, and that things are going to make sense. And sometimes they won't. I mean, those of us in ministry or whatever setting probably have heard some of the most horrific things, right? And it makes absolutely no sense. And sometimes that's not what people need. They just need to know that that they are believed, that they matter, that at least somebody finally sees them. Right? Some things just don't make sense. Once I let go of certainty, boy, other questions? Yeah.
Pastor Evangelina Perez, Kairos Christian Church in Dallas. I just read a commentary of a Hispanic young kid that said that he was proud and walked into his classroom, high school, with his head high on Monday morning. And the reason was because he was seeing. And he felt that the Super Bowl middle show, what I call the Benito Ball, I have been keeping track of the commentaries, not of anyone in particular, but mostly coming out of the Hispanics and the Latino community, of the millions of people that felt that they were seen and heard and that they show that they belong. And when you think about the national discourse and everything that is going on, there has been a moment of healing for a group of our society, of our nation that needed it. And something that really struck me and hurt was we have been here all along. We have been the ones serving at the tables and cleaning and mowing the yards and cleaning at the hotels or cleaning the houses or doing all sort of things, and yet we were invisible. So we're talking about a whole community that got a moment in the spotlight, and all they needed and want is the curiosity of people that are willing to learn and see others where they are.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah. Maybe one other question? Another question?
One question.
Yes.
mentioned just a little bit about there's an inherent invisibility of being a Black woman. Could you speak a little bit more about that?
The commodification of Black women. That Black women are valued by what they can do. Caregiving is something that continues to be passed down. Was definitely passed down in my family. That our only value is what we can do for other people. That we don't have spaces to be anything but strong. Anything beyond that is considered weakness, is unacceptable. The belief that you have to do things 3 times better, right, to be accepted, to get attention, to get the best positions. Boy, I can go on and on. I used to, when I answered that question, I used to do it very cognitively and scholarly. Now it just makes me cry how much I bought into that. But you know what? I don't criticize myself because I understand it was survival and still do, right? It would be nice if I had the privileges of some of my other, I don't mean to be offensive to my white brethrens and sisterins, but we always say if I just had half the courage, right, of y'all, I'd be all right. But there's something about, the sense of belonging and value and worth that speaks, right, that says in spite of all of that, that's not my story, right? Those are things that were passed down. And so for me, the journey is also seeing that those things are valuable, right? And to find spaces where tears and softness and what people consider, I don't even use those labels anymore. I consider those things as being human, right? That I can now make space for myself in my lives and my relationships, that I don't have to hold it on because some of those things are quite deadly, right? In terms of how we take care of ourselves, what we believe is possible for our lives. So I'm definitely of the generation who didn't do that very well. But now having to learn and let go of some of those cultural beliefs and cultural burdens that just simply don't serve me, right? So there's a lot of freedom and liberation in that. Yeah, for sure. Thank you for the question. Yeah. So before we end, if you all could just name one thing that you're taking away from this, just one thing. Just yell it out. One thing that you're going to take away from this. Who wants just yell it out. One thing. Somebody else. One thing. Don't be shy. What are you taking away? You might say, I'm going to take 10 things away, and that's okay. But just name one. Take time to notice, yeah. What else? And it's okay if you're not taking anything away. But I think you're going to take at least one thing. Self-compassion, for sure.
Be whole.
Yeah. Somebody else? Visibility is love made known. Somebody else? Yeah. Anybody else? Yeah. No way. Others. Just call it out.
Oh, I'm sorry. I feel affirmed that from your talk that I endeavor every day to see people where they are and who they are and as a special person, no matter what. And so that's what I try to do every day. So I feel affirmed by your talk, so I appreciate that.
Thank you. Anybody else before we dismiss? We're right out the end.
Healing is a life journey.
Woo! At least I can say that now. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm doing this because I have sort of this new mission in life, is to help us all see better, right? And so I'm just trying to be as honest and real as I can and let you all know what I'm seeing on the ground, because you guys are seeing the same thing. So we can't do this work by ourselves in isolation. We need each other. So I hope that the journey of you seeing inside of yourself, right, can help you to see all of the people around us and help them to see that they're known, valued, they have worth, and that they know that there's more to life than what they've been living. And that's probably for some of us too. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Trina. Thank you. And thank you for sharing with us the ways that your own invisibility has been morphed into a gift for the world. So thank you.